Welcome everyone. I think I'm very excited about this session because it's very unique. It's very differentiated. In what we are trying to do here. There are no official guidelines in MBA applications process about social media or even LinkedIn profiles. But LinkedIn is a very integral part today of your professional brand online. But we do understand that business schools, admissions officers at business schools are looking online. If they want to recruit you, they will Google your name. So this is a step in that direction that we decided to take and partner with Stephanie, who leads pretty cool coaching. She's based out of Europe, and I'm very excited to have her with us. She had done a session on LinkedIn for us, at the Red Pen, and I think she has amazing insights on how you can build your professional brand. So if an admissions officer is looking through a profile, what are the thoughts that they might have, right? Do understand that this is only building up your LinkedIn profile from an MBA application standpoint. We don't want to put everything for applications on your social media profile, but the focus is not finding a job or those kind of things. If you have any of those questions, then Stephanie is the person that you need to reach out to one-on-one. At the end of the session, she will give her contact details. So over to you, Stephanie, and I will switch back on to take questions at the end.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction, Preeti, and for the opportunity to share this work session with everyone. So as Preeti said, I'm going to spend about 30 or so minutes going through content, and then that'll leave plenty of time at the end for some discussion. So before I jump in, a little bit about myself. My name is Stephanie Kelly. I own and run Pretty Cool Coaching and Consulting. And I spent the last 17 years in the advertising business as a brand strategist. And I've worked with some of the biggest brands in the world trying to figure out how to sell those products and services to people all over the world. And so now I work with individuals in one-on-one coaching. I'm a certified professional coach, and I work on specifically life and career coaching. And so I work with people who are in a career transition, maybe looking to pivot into a different industry. I work with people who are looking to just enhance their professional development. Maybe they're a new manager, or maybe they're starting a new role and want to start off really strong and strategic and in laying out their plans. And then I also have a lot of experience with burnout and preventing the cycles of burnout that are so prevalent in the corporate space. So I also work with clients on burnout prevention and also recovery if you're experiencing that. Outside of work, I live in Chicago in the US, and I'm a relatively new mom to a little girl named Frankie. I love to travel the world, and I also love to share these tools, which is why I'm here today. So
I did your location wrong. I'm so sorry, Stephanie. I thought you were based out of Europe.
Oh, I wish I was based in Europe. Are you kidding? That would be amazing.
Sorry for that.
No, that's okay. I'm in Chicago, but my heart is in Europe for sure. Okay, so I usually ask people to put away their phones when we're engaging in a session, but very quickly, I'd love for you to just take out your phone for 1 minute. And this is the first tool on LinkedIn that I want to show you. So if you take out your phone and open up the photo app, you can just hold this up to, like, you can hold your phone up to your screen, and it should immediately pull up a link to my LinkedIn profile. And you can connect with me and we can stay in touch that way. But I also wanted to show you that because this is a fantastic and really easy way to grow your network. So as you're meeting new people, potentially at recruiting events for schools that you're interested in, or even just like growing your network at some of these events that you're attending, this is a wonderful and really simple way of keeping in touch without having to like actually read out the URL of your profile or write down your name. You can just kind of give them this QR code and be on your way. Now, the way that you do this is it's only available on the LinkedIn mobile app. So don't go looking for it on the desktop version. Just take a look for it in your mobile app, and you can download your very own QR code to link people right to your profile. So once you get it all leveled up after this session, you'll want to be giving it out to everyone, and this is a great way to do that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a gigantic platform that started as a job finding platform, but has really expanded into a networking and also content driven platform. In recent years, it's actually known more for the content than it is for the job seekers. And the reason that I think that that's important for you with creating your online presence and really showing up in the way you want to is because people go to LinkedIn to kind of check out what is this person all about from a professional sense. So if you have a couple of years of experience in the professional space, or if you're publishing articles or thought pieces on an area that you want to move into professionally, all of that really belongs on your LinkedIn profile, and it fits into all of the tools and structures that this platform offers. So it's very much geared towards not just, I'm going to put my resume up here, but I'm going to tell my professional story to the world, and I'm going to publish content accordingly. So we'll talk about a bunch of different ways that you can do that, but I just wanted to emphasize the shift that the platform itself is making from one of just posting jobs and hopefully getting a lot of applicants to one that's really about defining your personal brand and enhancing your professional persona, whether that be through content or just through a strong profile presence. Okay, so in this case, in applying to MBA programs, it's really important to make solid connections and to make sure that your personal brand stands out. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I also have some additional resources that I can offer to you after the session that will help you to craft your personal branding message. But the way that you can stand out on LinkedIn is really kind of a three-part equation. One is your personal brand. What do you uniquely offer to the world? What is special about you? And you may say, well, I don't know what's special about me. We can help work on exactly what you offer to the world that's uniquely you, that's based on your background and your experiences so far. I also have a tool that I can send to anyone who's interested. Just email me that can help you get to a clearer story about your personal brand. Then you want to consider who your target audience is. So if your target audience is the application directors and the kind of like frontline people at these MBA programs, you might want to think about what are they interested in seeing? They want to see someone who is interested in postgraduate growth, who has set a clear trajectory for where they want to go next. Like, you might have a couple of years of experience in the working world, but you have goals for the future, which the MBA is a part of. But then what's beyond that? They want to know that they're not only getting someone who has a deep experience in the professional space, but also someone who has their sights set on where they want to go next. And these are the types of things you can account for in your profile. And so that's really where the content strategy piece comes into play. So based on what you think these application directors might be looking for, or what kind of program you're looking to get into, you can start to craft and curate the type of content that you bring into your profile, whether that's your own story, as we'll talk about today, or whether that's the types of articles that you're reposting, or the types of groups that you're a part of, or the types of news that you're reacting to. That should all sort of play into this professional persona that you're trying to craft, that the MBA is ultimately a part of. Okay, so in the session today, in the next half hour or so, I'm going to share 12 different ways to up-level your LinkedIn profile and ultimately stand out in the admissions process. And most of them are ways that you can also take to the future, that after you're done with your MBA, you can apply a lot of these same principles to your professional profile as well. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. So the first thing is your cover photo. I'm going to kind of start from the top of the profile and work my way down. So your cover photo is this thing right at the top. It's kind of like a big banner right at the top of your profile. And that's the first thing people see. If they're going to click into your profile, this is like a big billboard, and it's basically free real estate to say and communicate whatever you want. And I see it as an opportunity to kind of set the mood immediately. Like, what do you want people to see, feel, know about you? I'm going to show you a couple different examples of how some people have used it, and I can send a lot more to you afterwards if you're interested in seeing a wider variety of how people are using this. But the truth is, most people just leave it as the default LinkedIn like gray background, and that's just like a waste of space. This is an opportunity to do something that visually can make you stand out, but communication wise can actually provide some information to the admissions director that you're looking to connect with. So here are a couple different examples of how people have used it, and like I said, I can send some additional ones if you're interested. But so the CMO at Pinterest, Andrea Mallard, she just, it's very appropriate for someone working at Pinterest to have a Pinteresty sort of inspiring background. So hers stands out immediately because it's very curated. It kind of reflects that brand ethos that is on Pinterest. So I think that this is a great way of doing this. It's very dynamic and it stands out in a pretty compelling way. Now, Grant Cardone, the second example, is a very different example. And this is why I picked these two, because one is a little bit more artistic and conceptual, and the second one is a bit more hard-hitting and focused on self-promotion. So Grant here has used his cover photo as a way of hitting the top 4 things he wants you to know about him. So all of this is also captured below in the rest of his profile, but he's kind of banking on the fact that most people are going to skim these profiles. They're not going to read every detail. So he wants to make sure that if you even don't scroll past this like top of the fold, you're getting kind of like the most important points about him. So he's called these out and created this unique cover photo within a program that I'll talk about on the next slide. So these are two different ways of going about this. Now, I kind of think about this as there's 3 different ways to use the cover photo, and then there's 3 different ways to update it. So you can use it as you can find a compelling image that reflects your background, your personality, your interest, kind of like Andrea did. You can use it as a place to sell yourself and what you bring to the table, kind of like Grant did. Or you can connect yourself to like the company that you're currently working with, an organization that you're particularly passionate about, or a cause that you care about. So some people will have, like some companies, for example, they'll all have the same cover photo. So there's like a continuity and a unity there that provides a level of professionalism. So it's really your choice. And it helps to think about like, what is it that you want the person visiting your profile to feel or to know once they stop at your profile? Like Andrea probably wanted her people to feel inspired. So she has like a selection of inspirational images, whereas Grant probably wanted his profile visitors to feel confident in his abilities. And so he went this route. Now, when it comes to changing your cover profile, there are kind of like 3 easy ways to do it. You can design your own on a program that's free on canva.com. So they have a bunch of different templates, but you can create your own from scratch if you want. It kind of just depends on on how involved you want to get there. You can use an existing template on LinkedIn. They have a bunch that you can choose from. They're not super customizable though, if you go with one of their templates. Or you can just find a free image on a royalty-free site like unsplash.com, one that maybe you're a lover of hiking in the mountains. So you find an image of mountains that really capture your passion there. Whatever it may be, these are kind of 3 easy ways to update what your cover photo looks like so that you can stand out right off the bat. Okay. The next thing, so the second thing that I'm going to talk about is your profile picture. Now, I still can't believe when I'm scrolling LinkedIn how few people or how many people still don't have a profile picture uploaded. It's probably the easiest way to get more views and more connections. As you can see on the right-hand side here, profiles with pictures get 21 times more views and 9 more connections. So why not put a picture there? It's one of the, again, it's one of the first things people see. And here are a couple tips on how to just make sure you're providing an exceptional profile picture. And then, by the way, it doesn't require you to go out and do a photo shoot. You can get a professional headshot done, but phones are so great these days. You can also take one yourself or have a friend or family member take one, and just make sure you're doing it in an area with indirect sunlight. Find a location with a great background, like cityscapes or something more natural. And then go into portrait mode. So that sort of blurs the background a little bit, and it really makes you pop, much like this gentleman on the left looks like. So it looks really professional, but you can do it in 1 minute on your phone. And then take a bunch of photos so that you can pick the one that kind of best captures your personality. And then you can use some light editing software if you want to enhance the colors or to crop it in the way that you want to. Whatever you do, make sure that the picture that you choose is really focused like on your face, on your head, and allows enough space around it so you're not cutting yourself off, but you're also not a tiny little dot in the middle of the circle on your profile. So you want your face to fill it up so that people can actually see your face on there. Okay. The third thing I want to talk about is the headline. So the headline is an interesting piece of the profile because this shows up whether someone clicks on your profile or not. And I think this is really important because as people are just sort of browsing maybe through, if they're doing a search or if they're more casually looking, not going directly to someone's profile page, this shows up in the queue or in the scroll. So this could be, making the difference between whether someone decides to reach out to you or whether they don't. So because the headlines carry a lot of weight, I want to spend a couple of minutes talking here and sharing some important tips on how to best use your headline. So I think it's sort of used for 2 different things. One is that it helps you show up in LinkedIn searches performed by potential clients, partners, colleagues, admissions officers because of the use of keywords. So that could be a keyword in something that you're looking to get into, like MBA candidate, or that could be something like a skill set that you're already bringing to the table, like a data engineer at Google or something. Maybe that's the job that you're coming from, that you're looking to go into, or that you're pivoting away from to go back to school. Whatever it is, it's really important to kind of balance the keywords that people might be searching for, and then something about yourself that does a bit of selling. Now that could be, selling your value, selling your services, selling your personality. The point is, it's not just saying, here's the job I have, like I am the CMO, but it's saying I am the CMO and here's what is unique about me, or here are the results I can drive, or here's what I'm looking to do. So I'll give you a couple different examples of this so that we can bring this to life a little bit clearer. So this is ultimately the formula that I'm talking about. So on the first part one is a keyword filled overview. In this case, it's data scientist, machine learning, and analytics manager at Nike. All of those could be points that someone could be searching for. They could just be searching for people working at Nike. In that case, this would pop up. They could be searching for people that are in data science. This would pop up, and so on and so forth. Now, the second one, the part 2, also shows how they've driven value at their current organization, or if you're not at a current organization, you can use that part to say what you're hoping to get, or who you're hoping to connect with, or what your aspirations are for the next year or two. So that could be, getting into an Ivy League MBA program, or starting your own business, or whatever the case is. So in this case, they're focusing on results, and they're driving growth across 170 million members. So I'm going to show you a couple different examples of how this comes to life, and then what I think is particularly strong about each one of these examples. So this is one that is an interesting one, because she says, Shay Rowbottom, she says, I turn founders and executives into LinkedIn video creators. So she outlines her clear value that she's providing. She has a clear target. She's looking to connect with founders and executives. And then she has multiple CTAs. So she wants you to send a direct message if you want to learn more, and she wants you to follow her for more content. So it's kind of, this one's an interesting example because it's kind of hitting many different examples in one fell swoop. So she's not only saying what kind of value she can add, she can turn founders and executives into video creators, but she's also saying, if you're interested in that, great, send me a direct message. If you just think my content is sort of compelling, follow me, and I can keep inspiring you, and then maybe we can work together later on. So that's one example of someone who's used this. I know this is a little bit different than the MBA, than what you would do for an MBA advisor, but I just wanted to provide some examples of how people are using this a little bit differently than just saying, I'm the CMO at Pinterest, which isn't a way of using it, but this is, I think, a more effective way of using this space. So this gentleman also has, I think, a good example of how he can use not only the cover photo up here to say, here's all the places he's been published, but also use this headline to kind of, again, communicate what kind of value he's adding. So he helps people land amazing jobs without necessarily applying online. Need help with your job search? And then there's a CTA to connect with him below. So this is sort of interesting because he's using the cover photo, which we talked about before, and the headline as a complement to each other. Okay. And then Keisha is, I think, another interesting example, because in her cover photo, she's giving a very clear call to action, and then also in the headline down here saying what position she currently holds and how she helps different people position themselves to attract different opportunities. So again, I think they work really well in complement to each other. So those are just a couple of ways you can use the headline. I think for everyone on this call, I would start with the formula that we went over right here. So what kind of keywords do you want to associate you and your profile with? And then what kind of results are you driving? What's your goal? What do you want to say to the world? That could be really, really good for the MBA applications. Okay, so now let's get into the About Me section. This is kind of the way of up leveling your profile. Now, about me is the big like paragraph that some people write. It's your chance to kind of tell your professional story about who you are and what you bring to the table. So this is where you could talk a little bit about your professional experience so far. If I'm sure some of you might be making a pivot into the business world when maybe you didn't start in the business world. That's where you can kind of tell that story as to why that's interesting to you or what you want to do in the business space after you get an MBA. It could speak to some of the interests that you have or some of the valuable experiences you've had so far, professional or otherwise. It's really totally up to you on how you want to use this section. I'm going to show you a couple different examples of how people have used it. And then again, if you're interested in seeing more, I'm happy to send the larger deck I have with examples to anyone who's interested. Just send me an email. I'll put my email up at the end. So this woman does a nice job of just telling the story of how she got to where she got to and what she loves to do. So she says, I'm a creative type at heart. I turned my perpetual love for creativity into a career in graphic design and wedding photography and a tech startup. So she kind of says, she does a nice job of blending, here's what I'm interested in as a person, and here are the ways that I've turned that into a professional experience. I think that this is like a highly personal one, but it still balances personal with professional. Now, this gentleman, I think, has an interesting approach. He does it a little differently. So he's got, a bit shorter of a summary at the top, a trailblazer in the commercial real estate industry, innovation trendsetter. So he's kind of setting the scene that he's going to be pushing the envelope a little bit. He tells you what industry he's working in. He has a direct CTA in here. I mean, now this is a little bit different than what you folks on the phone are looking to do, because he's looking to generate clients from this, so it's a little bit different. But I do think it's an interesting example of someone who is putting a CTA right in their summary. So he's saying, well, now you know what I can do. If you want to work with me, just shoot me a text. Here's my personal number. And then I also think this is the part that I think is particularly interested for those on the call today. He's been able to highlight different awards that he's gotten in a way that really stands out. Like, he's packed a lot of information into this relatively short kind of 3-sentence or 3-paragraph summary, and highlighted some of the awards that he's earned over the years, which I think could be useful for any accomplishments that folks on the phone have had and different highlights that they want to make in their professional experience. Okay, and the last one I'll show is this man, Neil Patel, and I think that he has done a particularly good job at touting his own credentials. And so if, in this case, if you want to kind of highlight some of the accomplishments that you've had, and do so in a way that really brings them to life, I think his is a particularly good example of that. And he does it through, not by just saying I'm great and I'm so smart, but he does it by providing evidence of what he's done. So for example, he's name dropping some of the brands that he's worked with. I've helped Amazon, Microsoft, Airbnb, which sort of connotes wow, okay, if they're working with him, he's probably pretty good. He said that how many visitors his blog generates over the month, 4 million visitors. He's spoken at 310 conferences. So again, he's kind of boosting himself up by saying what he's done, without necessarily coming off as braggadocious or a little bit too brazen. So if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by this, no worries. I just want to say it is hard, and only about a third of people who are sitting down to write their LinkedIn profile actually feel confident in describing their professional achievements. It's hard work. So if you're feeling that right now, no worries. You're in the right place. one thing that I can provide to you, again, if you're interested, is a workbook to kind of go through some of these questions yourself. It'll walk you through step by step. So just shoot me an email if you're interested in getting this, and I'm happy to send it along. But it'll help you think through some of this stuff step by step instead of just kind of having to go from the examples that I'm providing today. Okay, so now I'm going to shift into some tips and strategies that allow you to go kind of above and beyond the basics. What we've covered so far, the cover photo, the headline, the profile photo, and the about me, those are like table stakes. Those are things you have to have. Now what I'm going to go through is several examples of things that kind of like take it even further and kind of ratchet it up a notch. So the first one is leveraging your skills in order to boost searchability. So profiles that include skills, which is something you can find if you go to add profile section, you scroll on down to skills, and then you can choose all the different skills that you bring to the table, and then people can endorse you for those. Profiles that have skills, that have like 5 or more skills, get almost 20 times more views than profiles that don't. Because 1, you're showing up in more searches, but 2, it's a more robust story about what you're bringing to the table. So this is really easy. You can add, skills that you have that you've gained from schooling, from work experience, from volunteer experience, whatever it happens to be. But this starts to round out your professional story in a way that is really easy to search and skim for anyone visiting your profile. The next way to up level your profile is to add a little bit of dimension, add examples where you can within your work experience. So this is underneath your About Me section. You get into the thing that kind of looks like a resume. And most people just leave it as a resume. They just say like, okay, I'll just put where I worked and maybe a couple bullets about what I did, and that's fine. But if you want to stand out and you have examples of either the work you've done or articles that maybe you contributed to or wrote, or any articles or websites where your work has been featured, this is a great way to kind of add a bit more context and a bit more potential to your profile. So, for example, this person was the head of marketing at Cheetos and Frito-Lay. So they added some links to some work that they had been a part of. Andrea, the chief marketing officer, had been on some podcasts. So she put a link to the podcast that she was on. She had been featured in some articles. She put a link to that in there. But also, like this director at a real estate developer, just put some links to some buildings that they had worked on or buildings that they had built. So it can really be anything. You can be really creative with this, but it's really just to add, instead of just saying, I managed a team at XYZ company. If there was something that your team created or an article that was written or even a blog post that you did about your time there, this would be a good place to highlight some of that experience. And it also gives people who are visiting your profile a bit more to click around in and learn more about you. Okay, the 7th way of up-leveling your profile is recommendations. So recommendations are at the very bottom of your profile, and this is something that you can reach out to colleagues, classmates, old teachers or professors, and even old clients that either you are currently working with or previously did, and just ask them. You can do this all within the platform. You send them a note and request a recommendation. And what this does is it allows you to do a little bit of bragging about yourself without you saying it. It's a lot more credible if you get someone else to say something really nice and lovely about yourself. And if you're trying to impress, in this case, like the application directors of the MBA program that you want to get into, there's really few things that do a better job than someone else providing a ringing endorsement for you. So this is a place where you can really allow your skill sets, your personality to shine by having other people speak to those qualities and traits that you bring to work or to class every single day. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is when you're asking for these recommendations, you can give them a sense of like what you want them to talk about. Not specifically what you want them to say, but hey, can you talk about my contribution to this specific project that we worked on together? Hey, can you talk about, what it was like working with me as a direct report or as a manager? So you can give them, instead of just saying, hey, can you write me a recommendation? You can give them, if you want to, a bit of a focus point for what you want them to, like what perspective you want them to provide in your recommendation. Okay, and then, so this is similar to the links that are in the that are in the work experience section, but this lives in a different space on your profile. And this is called the featured section. So as people are scrolling through your profile, this is a section right up near the top where you can feature anything that makes you stand out. So again, if you've been on a podcast, if you've written a blog post, if you've published an article, even if it's just an article on LinkedIn, that's totally fine. Or if you have like a portfolio site that you want to show, or an example of your work that you're particularly proud of, this is the section that you'd put it in. And you can add a link, you can add a file. It's very easy to add stuff to this section. But what this will do is this will separate it out from the rest of your profile, and it's a way of highlighting your point of view on a specific topic, or even highlighting, some of the work that you're most proud of, or some of the moments in your career that you're most proud of. So this is a great way of kind of deciding, when you decide how do you want people to feel, and how do you want the application directors to, what do you want them to walk away with as they look at your profile. It would be key to put a couple of links at least, or a couple of pieces of work that you want to feature there in this section to further round out that story. Okay, so the ninth way that I want to talk about is creator mode. So creator mode, for those of you on the call right now who are kind of thinking about, establishing your perspective on a specific subject, like maybe you're really passionate about cryptocurrency, maybe you're really passionate about professional development, or about finance, or about investing in entrepreneurs, whatever the case is. Creator mode is allowing more people on LinkedIn to be creators and to develop a following and an audience on whatever subject they want to be an expert on. So creator mode in and of itself is really just a profile setting on LinkedIn that helps you grow your reach and your influence on LinkedIn. Now, granted, this might not apply to everyone on this call, but for those of you who are trying to use LinkedIn as a platform to gain influence and to gain a following and to maybe even brush up on your knowledge of different subjects, this is something to pay attention to. So the way that this looks is, if you ever see this talks about little notation here underneath the headline, that's someone who has clicked on creator mode. And so what that does is you can choose the topics that you're going to talk about. You can change them as well if you decide that you picked the wrong ones. But it allows you to be more discoverable on this platform, because anyone who says, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and look at burnout, I would show up somewhere in that search as someone who is talking about burnout. It also allows you to put a personal website right below the talks about. And the other key difference it makes is it changes your connect button to a follow button. So on a normal profile that is not in creator mode, people have the option to connect with you. When you go into creator mode, they have the option to follow you, and then they have to go into more in order to get into connect. But it doesn't get rid of any of your connections if you go into creator mode. It just it creates more of a following of your content than a direct connection one-to-one. Okay. It also allows you some access to like the analytics behind who's engaging in your content and what are they using it for. Okay, so the way to do this if you're interested is you go up to your profile up here in the upper right hand corner. You go to view profile, you go to creator mode and toggle it on, and then you choose what are the topics you want to be talking about or said to be talking about. So that's really simple. You can start to do that and choose how you want to show up on there as a creator. Okay, the 10th tip is customizing your profile URL. So this kind of goes with what I was saying at the beginning about that QR code and making it really easy for people to connect with you. This second one, this like linkedin.com/4567891, that's like typically what the LinkedIn addresses look like. But you can very easily change it to linkedin.com/your first name, last name. And that just makes it a lot easier for people to follow you if you're giving out your URL. So that's a really simple one. So tip number 11 is to make sure that as you're making all these changes to your profile, so after the session today, when you go back to enhance your profile and level it up, make sure you turn off the notifications while you're doing the tweaking. Otherwise, your entire network is going to get an update every single time you like change a word or change a skill set or whatever. So you can do that by just going into your profile, settings and privacy, visibility, and then toggle share profile updates with your network to no. You can turn it back on after you make all the changes and get to a place that you're happy with, but save everyone a little bit of overload on updates and do it ahead of time. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to share is just kind of an overarching, if you are looking to enhance your presence on LinkedIn and start to lean into some thought leadership in this space, or even just connecting with others in a more intentional way in this space, these are some tips for that. So the first one is just to actually set aside time every single day to build your brand and network on LinkedIn. Some people call it the coffee cup routine, where it's like, what can you get done in the span of 1 cup of coffee or tea? So that might be commenting on 3 posts. It might be finding a new article to share, or it might just be finding 3 new people that you want to connect with. Whatever it is, make it a regular practice that you can do on a day-to-day basis. You can also find groups on LinkedIn that match your area of interest or even your area of where you want to go in the future, and start to engage in those groups, start to connect with people on there, start to react to the content that they're posting and share your opinion or ask questions. That's a way of getting more versed in some of the subjects you might not know a whole lot about, but that you're interested in doing, which can really make you stand out when you get into the MBA application process. Make sure you're connecting with all the people that you've worked with, learned with, connected with in the past, or attended a conference with. Make sure you don't miss anyone there. And then you don't always have to, the beauty about LinkedIn is that you don't always have to just make your own content. You can be very active on there, just reposting other people's content, but providing your perspective on why that's an interesting thing or why you think that's important to know. You want to set kind of brand guidelines for yourself. They don't have to be official. They can just be kind of in your head of what do you want to stand for. That workbook that I was talking about earlier can be a really good tool in deciding what are your brand guidelines, who do you want to be on this professional platform. Okay, so in summary, we have covered a lot. I've shared 12 strategies for how to level up your LinkedIn profile and stand out in the MBA admissions process. And we have about 15 minutes left, so I want to use the rest of the time to answer any questions, hear what you're taking away, and also I'll provide my contact info at the end so you can reach out if you have any additional questions. But I will turn it over to Preeti.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I mean, every time I think I listen to you, I learn something new. So I think this has been great. And before I jump into the questions, guys, please post your questions. I do have some questions. I just want to put it out there that you might feel that why am I doing this whole brand building? If it's not required from an MBA applications perspective. Now, one thing which we have heard from admissions officers is they will assess you that are you someone who is a recruitable candidate within 3 months post graduation. Given your profile, are you someone they can put in front of a corporate recruiter? So if they see a very strong brand online, that box gets ticked. And also, this is an opportunity for you to supplement information from your resume and the rest of the application which you cannot put. For example, we can only write, some schools are mandating just one letter of recommendation now, right? Fuqua had, for example, they had 2 until last year. One was optional. Now they're removing that option. Columbia is requiring 1. So is London Business School. So I think, having those recommendations on your LinkedIn profile, telling, your close colleagues, your clients, perhaps, to kind of, vet your brand online would definitely go a long way. Stephanie, I had a couple of questions. One is, how aggressive do you think the profile should be? Because there are varying degrees of kind of positioning yourself. And sometimes business school admissions officers can be a little conservative. So how do you think, we can, achieve that middle ground?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And it's such a personal choice. Like, I think that if there's anywhere in the world that you can be a bit more aggressive or assertive about your own accomplishments and what you have to offer, it's LinkedIn. I mean, this is literally like who you are in a professional sense. If you want to stand out, I think you can be as forward and forthcoming with your accomplishments as you feel comfortable with. Now, that might be uncomfortable for most people. I know it is a little bit for me, but if you're not going to do it here, where are you going to do it? And so I think like a couple of the examples we looked at, like the Grant Cardone example where he had like all of his like bullets in the profile or in the cover photo, that might be too much for some people. It might be a little too like, look at me, I'm amazing. But find the balance that works for you. Can you tell it in a way that's a little bit more, I don't know, that fits your personality a little bit better? Or to your point, can you have your recommendations speak to some of those things that you might be a little bit shy to to highlight? Like, have someone else say it for you. That's an easy way to do it. But I would say find the point where you're like, oh, I'm not quite comfortable saying that about myself, and just like push a little bit past that. Because again, if there's anywhere that you can be confident and forthcoming in what you bring to the table, it is LinkedIn, and it's this space.
Yeah, I agree. And, because MBA, post MBA goals are such an important aspect of the entire MBA application, schools will look at, what are the kind of groups that you've joined? Are you commenting on that? Do you have any thought leadership in the area where you want to work? So I think trying to, build that brand early on, I think is definitely, I think, a great idea. Also about following schools. So sometimes people want to apply to a certain set of schools, and we do recommend that follow all schools on LinkedIn. I do not think this is more than a question. It's more about, I think, perception. I think what I would avoid doing is just following a whole bunch of schools and saying that my profile is just all over the place, which is why I think assessing fit for a particular program is very important. If you're following, for example, Tuck and Fuqua, they many people consider one over the other. So then you're like bang on, right? Aligned with your post MBA goal. If you have social entrepreneurship as a goal and you're following Oxford and Yale, it's understood. So I would say that just be careful about that. There will also be a career office assessment, perhaps. If they send your profile to someone in the career services office, that are these goals realistic, they might go to your LinkedIn profile to kind of assess whether this is realistic or not. um, yeah, I think those are some of the questions which I had. We do have one question. What keywords on the LinkedIn profile can help to indicate readiness for MBA to the outcomes?
That's a great question. So, I guess like that's you know what I actually would like turn it back to you. So I think you could go a couple different routes with it. You could say like MBA candidate or MBA applicant for 2023. Um, or like again, you could kind of like um, maybe put like something in the second half of your headline to indicate your desire to go back to school or to round out your application. I'm not like those are the initial thoughts I have. Preeti, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think every school, we have made word clouds for every school, and you can ask this to your consultant. It should ideally be in Cialco's knowledge bank. If it's not, just write to me. We did make word clouds for some schools, and for example, leadership is something very popular across schools. They will look for leadership examples. So leadership is a keyword. If you're endorsed for that, that would be great. So if you are someone in strategy consulting and you're endorsed, for strategy, then that would be great. Adding some of these skills, I think there are when I know, back in the days when I used to coach people on LinkedIn, there were like these I think 47 or 49 skills that you could add, and I used to tell them to add everything. So when we searched and come high in search results based on that. So I would align it with your pre-MBA experience and your post-MBA goals when it comes to identifying those skills, because then you can showcase transferable skills if you are especially someone going for an MBA because of career transition. That's what I would say. There was one more question I did have, Stephanie, and I just was my track. But yeah, so I wanted to ask that sometimes people are not comfortable. So one, there is no requirement, I'm assuming, to kind of copy paste the whole resume into the work experience section on LinkedIn.
Right.
And people who are working with clients, and they're kind of prohibited contractually from taking names of clients that they've worked with, people from these large consulting firms, for example, or if you're working on a private equity deal, you cannot like name a company, I'm working on this deal. How would we position that?
Yeah, so I've seen people kind of skirt around that issue a little bit by saying, like I've worked with, I've driven, XYZ results for 5 of the Fortune 500 brands. Or, like, so they give a clue of what the brand is without necessarily saying it's Google or it's Amazon or whatever it is. So I think that's one way to do it. You could just focus on the results that you're driving. So, worked with a client to drive 10x sales in whatever it is. Like, I'm just making this stuff up. But without using the word itself, you could always just focus on the results that you drove. And maybe if it works out this way, you could also like reference what tier of business they're in, like with the Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 or Fortune 50. That's I think how I would do it. Is I would either allude to it or just focus on what result I drove.
That's a great point, because I think schools are also looking for impact. When they're reviewing a resume, our resume specialists are working with clients to kind of make sure that the impact is, disclosed. We did speak with one admissions officer who said that, the first thing I look for is a resume, and if I don't see an impact against a particular bullet, I just put a cross mark against it. So, I think having that impact rather than, a job description would be great. Also, this is a space, where you can add volunteer opportunities, extra certifications, because a resume is mandatorily, required to be a one pager for business school applications. Many schools also have their own format. Most European schools, for example, or even Rotman, they give their own resume format. So you have to adhere to that. And I think have supplementing that with LinkedIn, which should definitely help. I would also say that because business school admissions and the whole application process is slightly conservative, I would stay away from having extreme political views, extreme religious views. So you can build your brand, but build your professional brand, and stay away from. I won't say that I would be afraid to be myself, but there is a certain responsibility when you're on social media, and I would think of yourself as if I'm going to be a future leader, how would I like to be seen, and build the brand accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I mean, ultimately, like you said, it's a professional network. So if that's a subject you wouldn't necessarily bring up at the office, it shouldn't be on LinkedIn either. And I think that's probably a good way of determining, like, how can I be myself without stepping over the line? It's like, well, you can be yourself at the office, but there are certain things you wouldn't do at the office too, because it's a professional setting. So I think that's how I think of it is, would I do this at work? And if not, don't do it on LinkedIn.
If we have one question, I think that's the last question that I'm going to take, and you guys will have the recording of this particular recording will not only be available in CLF's Knowledge Bank, but it will also be available on our YouTube channel. So one question is, some aspects of LinkedIn, for example, display photo, cover photo, have some firm related stuff that the organization that they're currently working at. For example, we are recommended to have firm branding on banners. Is this okay, or should we change to reflect one's personal brand?
I think that's a good question. So it depends on your goals. So, for example, if like I've worked with clients who are trying to become more cohesive as a company, and therefore, like, it makes a lot of sense for them all to have the same cover photo in order to look really professional and cohesive. If your goals and aspirations are to stand out and to like chart the future of your professional path, I would maybe say, does having the firm related cover photo make as much sense as instead having a more personal one that tells your personal story? Like, ultimately, you're the only one that can answer that, but that's what I would go back to, is like, what's ultimately like the objective of someone visiting your profile? What do you want them to walk away with? Do you want them to walk away with the takeaway that you're a part of this company, or do you want them to walk away with like 2 or 3 points about yourself and your future goals?
Yeah, I think sorry, I think that's a great point, Stephanie. And on that note, I do want to tell that please don't have more than one profile. This is something I think you already tell, but don't have more than one profile for like different reasons. Is that correct, Stephanie?
Oh yes, yes. That sounds complicated.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, just putting it out there in case someone has that thought crossing their mind.
Yeah.
But I think it was wonderful chatting with you, Stephanie. I think thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
Can view the recording later. Do reach out to Stephanie for any questions. I would encourage you to visit her website and download that workbook. It'll always supplement your efforts in your MBA applications, and as you're building your brand for MBA applications. It'll also help you. Some of those questions might help you in your interviews as well. So I would strongly recommend you to go and download that book. And she has already given her email. Do reach out to her if you have any questions. Thank you so much, Stephanie, and everyone. Please have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.